go on spamming your inbox with compiler release announcements and such. And let's see. Uh-oh, this isn't good. One moment. Seems to be. Alright, brilliant. So, here we are. So, right, let's see. So, there's some good news, and that is that GHC's contributor base is growing. This is sort of over time. We see that, in recent years, it's actually have a bit of an uptick, but there's also a bit of bad news here, and that is that, well, track activity is also growing. And the absolute numbers there, you see, we have a few orders of magnitude separation. So, we have roughly about 100 bugs per every contributor, and this is perhaps something that we should...
What are these graphs? What's the vertical axis?
Right, so here we are. This is the track changes, ticket changes, so comments and such versus time, and new tickets versus time. And that in 2016, for the record, this is year to date in 2016. So we're sort of on track to surpass previous performance in this aspect, which is so. So this is something that obviously the Haskell community is growing. The GHC user community is growing, consequently, but and the developer community is growing. But I think we can do better. And I think that some of the discussions that we've had within our community in the past year sort of suggested that there are ways that there are areas of contributors that we're not really reaching, and there are groups that we already do reach that we can still do better in serving. And so I would like to sort of briefly propose that there are sort of these three groups that we can, sort of these user cases that we could do certain steps to sort of improve developer experience. I'd like to do this very quickly, and with the goal of, in the end, opening up and hear what you guys have to say. What exactly is it that you feel, you as a user or a developer, whatever your relationship to GHC may be, how we can help you contribute. So, so the first, and I think unbelievably invaluable, but group that we're not really reaching is casual contributors, and there are a variety of reasons for this. And I think the fact that we have so many documentation, things such as the error descriptions that was suggested earlier, documentation fixes and haddock bugs, small bugs that have been open for a very long time, that really just need somebody with a spare half hour or so to look at the bug and work through either writing a little bit of text or fixing a small documentation issue. This should be quite doable, and I think other communities have done better in trying to attract these sorts of contributions. And I think the problem here is that we do have a fairly high friction contributing process, and this is something that we're aware of. It's of course a compromise, and so I think the sort of proposal that I would put forth here, and I think this has been discussed a few times, is that we begin to accept small fixes via GitHub. And this is again a proposal. And I'd like to hear what you all have to, and this would be, in principle, starting with documentation alone, and those fixes that really do not require more than a single person sort of code review effort, and provide better resources for those who are writing these patches to contribute to the project without having to go through the rigmarole of building GHC. So this is sort of one easy thing that we can do to help a very important group of people. There's also the second group, which is you all, or many of you in this room are frequent contributors to GHC, and I think in the last year or so we've had, the last several years, things have been getting better and better, and I think the infrastructure we have in place, Fabricator, Harbor Master, while it's not been the most reliable in the past, it should be much better now, and it has worked wonders in helping to keep the build stable. But I think in general, build breakage does happen very often, more often than it should, and we would really like to have better and more consistent CI, more complete coverage across platforms, and this is something that will be that I'm going to be working on the next year to make sure that we have at least tier 1 covered. But of course, CI is not going to help if it's not used, and so I think we'd really like to. I would really urge all of you who do have commit rights to really try to use Fabricator, if possible, even if not for review, just for ensuring that your patches build before being pushed, and this applies to me and as well. So. And finally, I think there's been a lot of people who have sort of complained that GHC style is something that has evolved. It was not designed, and it is inconsistent. And this is something that has a very small cost and a large number of people. And this is something that we have tools to address. So if we can begin to impose tighter style linting across modules on a module per module basis, try to improve the situation in an incremental manner, I think we can get to a better place. And finally, we have proposal authors. These are people, users, often advanced users, but sometimes not. Sometimes GHC contributors who have an idea which they want to see implemented in GHC, or to see implemented in, either the compiler or the language that we compile. GHC Haskell, and we already, of course, had somewhat of a proposal process in place, but I think it is fair to say that what we had didn't necessarily serve all of the groups that we want to try to extract, or that we want to hear, and consequently, it was time to sort of take a hard look at this and perhaps learn from what other projects have done in this space. And this has sort of brought us to a new proposal process, which you have likely heard about. We're currently in the early stages of implementing this process. It is essentially building on the Rust RFC process, where we use code review tools to facilitate discussion and refinement of proposals, and then we have a designated committee whose job it is to help work with contributors to refine their ideas and ultimately decide whether they are something that GHC would benefit from. And so we're still in the very early stages of implementation, but it seems to be working. We already have, despite the fact that the proposal process itself, the proposal has not even been merged yet. We have several open pull requests, and those numbers there are in the dozens of comments each. So this is I think this is a very good sign, and I think it does reflect the fact that our processes, this will help in move the language forward. So the question then is, what else? How else can we help you? We need contributors. We'd love to have your help in moving GHC and the language forward. And how can we make your development experience better? So this is when love to hear from you. What else can we do? Yeah.
I'll just say a comment about documentation bugs. So I think you can split those into two categories. There are things like typos, which I filed a couple recently about that, and Tim has been brave enough to learn the whole system. So the thing that was tackling me from fixing those preventing me from fixing those myself is the infrastructure that learning Fabricator and R.
Yeah.
But then there's another class, which is I discovered that this weird thing about how read and show interact that's not documented. And the problem is I don't know how it's supposed to work,
right,
or how it's supposed to be documented. So I couldn't fix that even if I did know.
Yeah.
Fabricator.
Yeah. No, and that's obviously a tricky situation. And in this case, I think ideally, open a track ticket, and somebody who does know can clarify, and then perhaps you can write the patch to actually fix the documentation. It's yeah, Joachim.
I like the idea of having an easy way of doing it. You hinted that you might want to have some rules about what kind of commits you want to
Oh, yes.
pick up and run. I would say try to avoid any rule that you can do out. And the simple rule would be any commit that I, as one who has commit access, would be comfortable with committing on my own without getting review. That's the kind of commit I would also be able to take from GitHub from anyone and just push it. You don't need rules, you just need, I guess, a few commit people who are welcome, who are happy to watch GitHub, reuse things, either push them or tell them, I wouldn't push this myself if I were you, or if you know me, I guess. Please take this with you. But don't worry about getting up detailed rules about how many lines of code may be changed.
Okay, yeah. Richard?
Two concrete suggestions from for everything you said. One, could we just put the user's manual, there's a lot of comment that if people might have documentation fixes for the manual. Can we just make that a separate Git repo that has its own issue tracker on GitHub, and it's a submodule in GHC, so we can still commit to it, but then, and just accept and sort of embrace pull requests against it on GitHub.
Yeah, I think we could do that. Yeah, there's a few technical things that need to be worked out, but yeah, I don't see why not.
And then that also means that people can build the manual without having to build the rest of GHC.
Yeah, and I guess so. There's the manual, and there's also the haddocks and base and whatnot. And the second is a bit harder, but that's
a little harder, yeah.
The user's guide that's a good idea.
But at least the manual I think is easy.
Yeah.
And the other is it would be great if you want more use of Fab. I would love to be able to say somehow, here's my commit, it's done. Give it to Fab, have Fab validate it. If it validates, push it in the repo without another step from me. Because very often I'll push to Fab and then task switch, and then 2 days later I come back and oh, now there's other commits.
I have to rebase.
And it's yeah.
No, that's yeah, okay.
I'm slightly skeptical about this idea. So that's a whole lot of friction people who just we're making a change to GHC and the self-service change to the user manual at the same time, which is a common thing to do.
With the submodule.
Yeah. So you have to check out the submodule, and then if you want to push your commit to Fab, you have to figure out how to get a submodule that Fab can find somehow when it's building with a change.
I think
yes, that's true.
This is really hard.
we could arrange for Fab to be a little bit more clever potentially here. It's if you added some special tag in the commit message or something, you wouldn't have to. But Ryan, I think you.
Yeah, can you say a little more about the style guideline linter that you proposed?
So,
I didn't hear any concrete suggestions. What exactly?
No, that's right. So we would want to start with simple line lengths. And so this is a hard problem, and I know that there are a variety of styles in the compiler, not because people like coming up with new styles, but because certain styles that are not idiomatic within the larger Haskell community, they are useful in GHC, or some of the patterns that you tend to find in GHC. So, for instance, the braces and semicolons and do blocks. This is something that is used in a variety of places in GHC, and arguably there are reasons for that. So I'm not sure we want to be. I think we want to be incremental and make small changes. Walk slowly towards a style and not jump too far. But I think very simple things like line lengths, ensuring that indentation is consistent. These are things that at least are better than what we have now. Joachim?
Again, trying to be the anti-Burr cooker. I don't believe in style guides. I never have problems reading any of the styles in GHC. I've never had anyone complain that he had problems reading the styles. But if you, while writing, have to think about a certain style and have to remember the rules, it's just any fiction. I just say, don't worry about style guides in GHC, you don't have a problem with it.
I've done something I've got to agree with that. It's solving the problem we don't really have. I know that people do for strongly have.
Yeah.
But not all. I think there's a problem.
Fair enough. I mean, I think consistency is good, even if it's just within a module. But I don't know. I've heard I have heard others complain about this. I don't feel terribly strongly either way. But Eric?
I would say consistency is nice. I personally don't care one way or the other about having a style guide, but if you are going to have a style guide, I think you really need a tool that will rewrite your code to fit the style guide rather than forcing people to make sure as I'm typing this out whether it actually conforms to the guide.
Yeah.
Because that's just a source of friction. Right?
No, that's a fair point. Yeah. Simon?
Well, in the sense of the guideline, even if we don't have a style guideline, so it's to, if you're making a change, adhere to the style of the surrounding code. So don't make a jarring style change.
Yeah.
And we have that rule.
Yeah, I mean, that tends to work fairly well, I think. People don't change necessarily. All right. As far, Edward?
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention, so I think a lot of the people who have been speaking up are people who do contribute to GHC on a regular basis. But like, if you're someone who has thought, oh, you know, like GHC is kind of cool, I'd like to, you know, get involved, but I don't know what to do, you know, I entreat you to please speak up because, you know, you're loud because we feel comfortable, but we also need to hear from you because this is also what this is about.
Absolutely. I mean, this is why we're having this discussion. Is to, you know, try to, yeah.
So I speak as someone who's taken a dive into the code base fairly recently and like see the style stuff. But yeah, dudes are sometimes one way, so there's the other. It's not a problem for me really.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. It sounds like this is probably not something we want to prioritize highly in that case, the style issue. Yeah?
There's one thing. Is there a person who prepared the Docker image for building GHC in this room?
Sorry, say again?
Is there a person that prepared Docker image for building GHC in this room?
I've used it on occasion when I'm on a machine that I'm not familiar with, but typically on my own laptop I don't use it. I just use it too much. But I understand there are people who find that useful, so I'm glad to do this.
Was your question came from something like you'd like to have Docker images available, or your offer to produce ones?
So first of all, I wanted to thank them really because within the space of a month, we have fixed building GHC and even setting up the own environment to build GHC and new machines from a week to 5 minutes. And second, I wanted to ask them some details about
There was something over here, I think.
So,
Okay.
some of these things we're saying, I think we should actually document the fact that you code to the style that's in the surrounding code and all this done. I mean, it's something that the people who contribute regularly know, but it should actually be
Explicit.
It's on the wiki.
That's the problem. And this is also a known issue. I mean, we need to sort of call the wiki and consolidate. Yeah?
There's one comment, sometimes you talk about building new documentation, etc., but we should not forget that removing old documentation because it's still getting mixed. And,
Please, remove all documentation.
Or maybe just annotate it such that the search results, it's not ranked so high. I mean, because people still use old compilers. We can't just,
Okay, fair enough.
but let's see. So there was at least, yeah?
So with the style guide, like just following the style of the file, you upload a patch to Fabricator and like someone notices, oh, you don't conform to the style. Is the person supposed to reject the patch or like what's supposed to happen then?
Yeah, I think code review, sometimes when I see a patch that isn't quite right, I'll just fix it when I merge it. But I think ideally we want contributors to submit conformant patches, and it's kind of a compromise. I guess, how many people have tried to build GHC here? Just a show of hands. Okay, wow, that's actually, and how many people have actually tried to modify GHC? And how many people have tried to push their changes upstream? Okay, so the numbers, all right. And how many people found this a process that, you know, was well, let's see, reasonably frictionful, or what were the, especially those who aren't regular contributors? I mean, for those who haven't spoken up, what were the issues? What was the, yeah?
So I contributed something this morning for the first time and went through the process, and I actually found it to be fairly easy. Like there's a little bit of documentation I'm looking for around art and how to submit fix-ups for things. But I think that the process I've done was fairly straightforward, and maybe that's because when I'm doing maths for full-time elsewhere. But I can find that there was too many holes in the documentation personally.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to build GHC as a cross compiler, and I found it's really, really painful because there are sorts of documentations in there saying it should be possible with that, and there is no information, and you just dig in a couple of hours, and then the next problem
Yeah,
will
I'm
be
sorry.
that.
That is a known
So
kind of uncharted territory.
Find someone who's done it.
Bartosz?
Yeah, I've
So
done it.
before we get the whole like CI stuff worked out, I would like to be more consistent about preventing things that broke stuff, like so that we
Okay.
get the code base clean as soon as possible, basically.
Yeah.
Because that's a real cost, like to run validate and you see like 5 things and you don't know if you've introduced them or they were there before.
Yeah, I think that, and I think what Richard suggested of sort of auto push to take the human element out of this entirely would be a great idea. Eric, if you would.
So when I started contributing to GHC, really the only problem that I ran into, and I think this was actually a pretty big problem, was it had nothing to do with the process of contributing, but just figuring out how to do things in GHC. You know, like if I have a string and I want to get the name of the GHC name for that thing, or the actual thing, the Thai thing for that thing. What is the right way to do that? Not just how can I do it, but the right way. Because even if you search through the Haddock for like lookup name or some variation of that, you'll find like 5 or 6 different functions, and to a newcomer, it's not at all clear. Which one of these should I use?
Sort of document the common idioms that you need in
Common
mind.
idioms, and I think also like Haddocks. I know that's a work in progress. I think it's very important, and we have to talk about it.
Yeah, no,
It's not clear to people who've been doing it for a while either.
That is very true.
I'm not very optimistic about the chances of anybody going around and documenting common idioms and the right way to do it, because there's so much you can say, and it would get out of date quickly, and it's hard to motivate yourself when you haven't got it all, when you don't know who your audience is. I think it's more likely to happen if, having found something, there was a fairly friction-free way in which you could record what you found in a way that other people would find it. So sort of lazy evaluation or something. But I don't quite know how to do that part. Even supposing, you found a thing, right? So now, how would you be able to write that down in a way that other people can find it? And we don't know the answers to that at all.
Yeah.
Okay, yes?
I'm just wondering, how can, is it possible to use GHCI, while doing GHC development? I thought about it, but I figured out it's not possible.
Richard did it once, right?
Yes, it is possible.
Uh,
and it's not even as hard as you think. All you have to do is just say GHCI-package GHC, and then you can import the GHC modules. It's just sort of through the GHC API. It's sort of a revelation.
Yeah, I mean, if there's more documentation, like a page or something.
Yes, I don't know. I think it should be on the wiki somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. One of the, in the forest.
It is actually somewhere.
Yeah, thank you everyone who spoke up so far, and if you did want to say something, or please come talk to me in person. Thank you.